There's a kind of emptiness that doesn't feel empty. You've carried it for so long, it almost feels like part of you. It doesn't scream. It doesn't break you open in public. It just quietly sits there, a hollow ache beneath everything, like a whisper beneath your breath. You stop noticing. You've never quite found words for it, have you? It's not sadness. It's not fear. It's not loneliness in the way people usually speak of loneliness. It's something softer, stranger, like standing in a crowded room, surrounded by laughter and voices, and still feeling like you're on the outside, watching your own life happen through a window no one else sees. You've always been good at hiding it, at smiling when you're supposed to, at nodding, at listening, at giving exactly what people expect, never too much, never too little. Because somewhere along the way, you learned that being fully seen is dangerous, that not every hand reaching toward you intends to hold you up. And so you became careful, not bitter, not closed, just careful. You've watched people leave, sometimes slowly, sometimes all at once, sometimes for reasons they never explained and you never asked. And with each goodbye, a small piece of you folded inward, not broken, just quietly tucked away where no one could reach it again. There's a quiet kind of fatigue that comes from always measuring how much of yourself you're allowed to show, from always calculating who feels safe today and who might not tomorrow. It's the exhaustion of standing guard over your own heart day after day. And still, underneath it all, there's that soft wish you carry maybe without even knowing you do, that someone one day would see all of it. Not just the parts you offer, not just the strength you wear like armor, but the whole quiet, complicated weight of you. And stay. Sometimes it feels like the world is filled with hands reaching toward you. Smiles, invitations, conversations. People saying they care. People saying they're here. And for a while, you believe them. Not because you're naive, but because you want to. Because there's a part of you that still longs to believe in the kind of connection that asks for nothing but truth. The kind where you don't have to second guess someone's reasons for staying. But over time, you've seen how quickly people's warmth can cool, how easily promises can drift into silence, how effortlessly someone who once spoke your name with tenderness can forget how to pronounce it at all. You've learned, sometimes painfully, that not every "I'm here for you" comes without conditions. That some people stand beside you not because they see you, but because for a moment, standing there serves them. And when that moment passes, when the benefit fades, or the season shifts, so do they. It's a strange kind of loneliness, isn't it? Not the kind where you have no one around you, but the kind where you realize how few of those around you would still remain if everything you offered was taken away. If you had nothing left to give, would they still call you friend? Would they still reach for you, even when there's nothing to gain from the reaching? And so you begin to notice the small signals, the conversations that feel just a little too polite, the eyes that glance away when your joy grows too bright or your sorrow too heavy, the quiet distance that creeps in when your success threatens their comfort or your struggles demand more than they're willing to give. You don't blame them. Not really. People are what they are, but still, you feel the sting, the soft breaking of another thread you once thought was strong, the reminder that even in a world full of connection, true presence is rare. And so you keep carrying that quiet ache. You hold your breath a little longer when you trust. you test the ground before you step. Not because you want to be guarded, but because somewhere, experience has taught you not every hand that reaches for you intends to hold you. It's not the betrayal itself that cuts the deepest. It's the moment your mind rewinds back, playing every scene where you once felt safe in their presence. The times you spoke freely, the times you laughed without caution, the times you trusted completely. And now, those memories feel like tiny knives pressing against your ribs. You never expected it, did you? Not from them. Not from someone who knew the softest parts of you, who you let see behind the walls you rarely lower for anyone. It's not just the loss of a person. It's the shattering of a story you once told yourself. The story that they were different, that they were safe. The ache lives in the gap between who you believed they were and who they showed themselves to be. And you replay it over and over, trying to find the exact moment when the shift happened. Was it always there, hiding behind kind words and warm smiles? Were there signs you missed because you wanted so badly to believe? This is the part that stays with you. The slow unraveling of certainty. The quiet collapse of trust. Because when trust breaks, it doesn't fall like glass shattering on the floor. It dissolves like mist, slowly, silently, until one day you realize it's gone. And you stand there in the space it once filled, trying to understand how something that felt so solid could simply disappear. You wonder if you were foolish, if your openness was a mistake, if somehow you should have known better. But you weren't foolish. You were simply human. You chose to believe in connection, in goodness, in loyalty. And though the pain whispers that you should have been colder, you know that coldness was never who you were. The wound isn't just what they did. It's what you lost inside yourself when they did it. The part that dared to hope. The part that wanted to believe people stay for who you are, not for what you give. And though it hurts, though it changes you, it also quietly teaches you not everyone who smiles is safe. Not everyone who stays is meant to. And sometimes the deepest pain becomes the clearest vision. There comes a point when the ache no longer surprises you. You stop being shocked by who leaves, who stays, who turns away when you need them most. Not because you've become numb, not because you no longer feel, but because slowly your eyes have started to adjust to the truth you once tried so hard not to see. You begin to realize that people are not always who you imagine them to be. Sometimes they aren't even who they imagine themselves to be. They don't wake up intending to hurt you. They don't always mean to drift away. But when the winds shift, when your needs no longer fit neatly into their lives, they do what people often do. They protect themselves first. And maybe, if you're honest, you've done it too. Maybe there were times you pulled away, not out of cruelty, but because staying cost more than you were willing to give. We all have our limits. We all carry invisible ledgers of what we can offer. And when those accounts run dry, even the best intentions falter. This isn't about blaming them or blaming yourself. It's simply about seeing clearly. You stop waiting for perfect loyalty. You stop expecting people to fill spaces they were never equipped to hold. And in that quiet acceptance, something unexpected happens. You begin to breathe again. The disappointment softens. The bitterness fades. Not because the hurt wasn't real, but because you're no longer trying to force the world into shapes that don't fit. You're no longer surprised when some connections fade, when some friendships dim, when some hands let go. You start to see it not as betrayal, but as the natural rhythm of life, people arriving and departing, each for their own reasons. Not every ending is a failure. Not every distance is a wound. Sometimes it's simply a clearing of space. And in that space, you begin to notice something you'd forgotten yourself. The parts of you that no longer have to shrink to fit someone else's comfort. The freedom that lives inside acceptance. The quiet strength that comes when you no longer beg anyone to stay. You start to watch people differently now. Not with suspicion, not with walls around your heart, but with a kind of quiet observation that doesn't demand anything from them. You notice how words can be beautiful and empty at the same time. How some promises feel warm in the moment, but fade like morning mist under sunlight. You hear people say, "I'll always be here," and you smile softly, not because you doubt them, but because you understand how life moves. You've learned that it's not the declarations that reveal someone's truth. It's the small, ordinary moments. The way they show up when no one's watching. The way they hold space for you when there's nothing for them to gain. The way they stay steady, not when it's easy, but when it's inconvenient. And when you see these things, you don't place people into boxes of good or bad. You stop searching for villains or heroes in your story. You simply see people flawed, beautiful, sometimes selfish, sometimes kind, always human. There's a certain kind of freedom that comes when you stop needing everyone to be more than they can be. When you release the weight of unspoken expectations, you reclaim pieces of yourself you didn't realize you had given away. You no longer hand over your peace in exchange for someone's presence. You no longer feel responsible for holding together connections that were never truly mutual. You let people reveal themselves at their own pace, and you quietly adjust your distance as needed, without drama, without resentment. And in this stillness, you discover something powerful. The less you expect, the more you see. The less you force, the more truth gently rises to the surface. Because people always reveal who they are not through grand gestures, but through their patterns. And now, you've become someone who sees those patterns clearly without losing yourself in them. This isn't coldness. This isn't withdrawal. It's simply the quiet wisdom of someone who has been broken, healed, and now walks with open eyes and a steady heart. There's a quiet kind of power that grows inside you when you stop reaching for others to complete you. Not because you no longer desire connection, but because you finally understand that no connection will ever fill the spaces you refuse to stand in for yourself. You used to think strength came from being surrounded, from having people, to lean on people who stayed close enough to catch you if you fell. But now, you see it differently. True strength isn't found in the number of hands holding you up. It's found in your ability to stand even when no one's there. You've learned that being alone isn't the same as being abandoned. That solitude doesn't have to feel empty. Sometimes it's the most sacred space where your thoughts breathe freely, where your heart listens to its own rhythm, where your peace isn't negotiated by someone else's presence. In this space, you begin to hear yourself again. The voice beneath the noise, the quiet knowing that was always there, waiting for you to return. You no longer beg for loyalty from those who are only half present. You no longer exhaust yourself trying to keep people close who were never meant to stay. You've stopped twisting yourself into shapes that fit someone else's comfort. And as you stand there, fully in your own skin, something remarkable happens. The fear begins to fade. The fear of losing, the fear of being left, the fear of not being enough. Because you realize you've survived every departure. You've rebuilt after every loss. You've held your own heart through every quiet night when no one answered the phone, when no one showed up, when the silence felt endless. And now you carry a kind of freedom that can't be taken from you. Not because nothing can hurt you, but because nothing can undo the strength you've built within. The world may still shift. People may still come and go, but you remain grounded, whole sovereign. And in that sovereignty, you no longer chase love that must be earned. You welcome only what flows naturally toward you, what stays without being held too tightly, what honors your wholeness, not your need. There's a moment when you stop fighting to hold on, not out of defeat, but because you finally understand that what is meant to stay will never need to be gripped so tightly. You used to think that love was proven through effort, the reaching, the chasing, the endless bending to keep connections alive. You thought letting go meant failure, meant giving up on people, meant closing doors you should have kept open. But now you see it differently. Letting go isn't giving up, it's giving back. Returning what was never truly yours to control. Allowing others the freedom to choose their place in your life and honoring their choice even when it isn't the one you hoped for. And in doing so, you set yourself free too. You release the weight of wondering why they drifted. You stop rehearsing conversations that never happened. You stop rewriting endings that were never yours to change. You no longer hold space for those who have long stepped out of it. And in that clearing, something beautiful happens. Peace moves in. A peace that isn't dependent on who stays. A peace that doesn't fear who might leave. A peace that whispers, you are whole, even in the absence of what you once held. You start to feel lighter. Not because nothing matters, but because you no longer carry what isn't yours. You no longer mistake control for care or attachment for love. You trust the natural unfolding of things. You honor what was. You release what is no longer. And you find yourself breathing easier, smiling softer, sleeping deeper, because the struggle to force what cannot be held has finally loosened its grip on you. And in that release, you realize peace was never in the holding. It was always waiting in the letting go. In the end, it always circles back to one place, back to you. Back to the quiet center you had all along, though life's noise often made you forget. You spent so much time reaching outward for love, for belonging, for someone to understand you fully. You searched for safety in voices, in hands, in promises that sometimes stayed, sometimes vanished. And for a while, you believed your peace lived in their presence, that your worth was reflected in who chose to stay. But now standing here after the losses, after the awakenings, you see what was always waiting beneath it all. You were never missing anyone. You were missing yourself. The truest safety was never in their loyalty. It was in your own ability to hold your heart with gentle hands, to witness your own pain without running from it, to celebrate your own growth without needing applause. You no longer ask, who will stay? Because you've stayed. Through every unraveling, through every silence, through every night you held yourself together when no one else did. And there is a power in that, not loud, not boastful, but steady. A kind of sovereignty that no loss can take. A freedom that isn't about having everything, but needing less. Needing only what honors your peace, what aligns with your truth. Now, when people come, you welcome them. When they leave, you release them, not because you don't care, but because you no longer fear the shifting tides. You've become the constant you once searched for in others. And perhaps in this stillness, you finally understand you were never incomplete. You were never waiting to be rescued. You were simply waiting to come home, to the version of you that no longer bends to be chosen, that no longer breaks to be kept, that stands whole open, unshaken. Because now you carry what no one can take: your peace, your clarity, yourself. And in this quiet sovereignty, you finally find the love you were always searching for, not in them, but within.